Hello and welcome to Lawfully Chaotic, Season 4, Episode 13. My light is haunted. My left side light is haunted. I had it all set up, and then I went in to adjust it, of course, while the countdown was going on, and I fucked it up. So now
That's
it just
how you
doesn't.
know we have an excellent production staff.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. God damn it. It wants to keep turning up there. Son of a... Okay, anyway. Hi, welcome to Lawfully Chaotic, Season 4, episode... I'm just going to turn the fucking thing off.
That's not your fancy painter's light, is it, that you spent $300 on?
No, that's this one here. Yeah.
Okay, just check.
That's like the sun level. No, these are my my Neo lights. I've got 3 of them, front and left and right. So anyway, welcome to Lawfully Chaotic, Season 4, Episode 13. Tonight we have with us, for real this time, in the flesh, Josh, to talk about Grimoires of the Unseen, the game that he has or is developing. It's still in development, yes. And really looking forward to finding out like what your process has been to create this game, because we talked about the game pretty in detailed mechanically last week. So it's almost kind of cool that we've split this up into 2 sessions. So I'm interested to hear about the creation. So welcome, Josh.
Yeah,
welcome to I know, Andy.
Yeah,
that's right.
Andy's like,
I should know better than to like touch things during the countdown, because then I get on and I'm fucking around with everything. And
you're like the archaeologist in Jurassic Park. If it's technology and you touch it, just
yeah, basically.
goes.
So yeah, I mean, I've no new announcements from last week. Everything's same. Jason, you got anything new?
Any Critical Role stuff going on, or
there's a little bit of
well, better yet,
down...
did they finally get back to you? I know you were hoping that they were going to get back to you on something.
Oh yeah. So the overlays for the one shots, that's slowed down a little bit, just given the time of the year. And the last game that I'm working on, Alex, the producer, was out for a week, and we were waiting.
Yeah,
it just got pushed back a little bit.
Yeah.
So we still got to wrap that one up. So
cool.
It seems to be, kind of in waves. It slows down, and then, like 3-4 of them call me like, you got time for this, you got time for this. And my answer is always, I always have time for Critical Role stuff. So just assume the answer is yes, and I will make time for it. But other than that,
Brian is the graphical creative genius behind all this. He does all the graphic work and the t-shirts and all that. And he's actually a really good miniature painter, although he'll tell you he's subpar. But I think me and Andy and the others have finally convinced him otherwise. We try it too.
I don't think I'm subpar. I think I'm a very good miniature painter. There are just other painters that I follow on Instagram that I aspire to be at their level.
Thank God, yeah.
So I am kind of hard on myself with some of my miniatures. So what's that?
I said there are some that just paint at an insane level.
Yeah, it's like, like Andy says, I'm an average painter. That's a fucking lie also. So we're all, we're all
self-deprecating.
Yeah. I mean, I just finished, and I'll post this because you're not gonna be able to see it too well, but I just finished the rest of the squad of these jump guys. And I think the jump pack flames actually turned out pretty good. I'll post better pictures on Instagram, but
that's pretty cool.
But I by no means I'm not the go-to person for Critical Role. I am a supplemental resource that they use. Although I do have quite a body of work from them. So the Mighty 9 t-shirt design was the first thing that I did for them, and no joke, that was the highlight of my 35-year career in advertising. 100% serious.
Not marriage, not kids, none of that shit.
I said my career, Jason. I didn't say my life.
Your career is your life, Holmes.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I know,
not
right?
that guy.
I've only got a couple announcements. I am holding out for Daggerheart. So I'm reserving my Tuesday evenings for a Daggerheart adventure or campaign. And I still have Thordak's Revenge posted for Thursday and Saturdays, but I haven't really been pushing to fill those seats yet. It's just kind of been sitting there. I haven't really put much effort into pushing it, and I think I need to at some point. But I had a couple games shift, so I'm reorganizing my schedule and putting the final touches on my new website. And it just, when you run 9 games a week, there are times that you have a day where you're just like, you know what, today I don't really have to do anything, so I'm just gonna not do anything. And then you wake up the following day and you're like, yesterday I really should have gotten that page done on my website. Procrastination is an Irish tradition. Let me tell you what for.
Yeah, well, I guess I must have Irish blood in me after all.
So yeah, no major announcements, nothing big going on there. But yeah, Josh, let's jump into it because I have.
Okay,
we're gonna let Brian the ADHD work on his lighting because
no, I'm killing the light. I keep turning it down, it keeps going back up. I don't know what the fuck is wrong. It's driving me insane. See, that shit just drives me insane.
It's like our new Google TV at home. It has a setting for automatic audio, and I'm like, what the fuck is automatic audio? What do you need that for? And it turns out it remembers the volume level that you watch certain channels on. And it automatically kicks it up to that volume level depending on your frequency of going to that channel. So like 7 o'clock in the morning, everyone's asleep. And I go out to have my coffee, and watch my favorite YouTube creators, and I turn it on. It like jumps up to 80, like rah, 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 just like starts blaring throughout the house, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to hear about that one. I know I am.
Robots are awesome.
I love robots. They really do. They always let the snipers know where you are. So thank you for all that great feedback because I'm breaking that down with the players, Josh, that you sent me. So we're going to go back to that. I do have a request for first aid and surgery. There was a feeling that those two should be broken up. It felt like first aid could be something that could be immediately used.
Are you injured?
And
should we call 911 now?
And surgery could be used as part of the downtime activity from a skill set. So the players were like, it'd be really cool if they were split because they kind of they felt different. Like first aid feels different, and surgery felt different.
Should be separate skills, you're saying, or
yeah.
Okay.
That was one of their feedbacks because. They loved the surgery skill. It made sense for when we were outside of the combat, and since we don't use initiative, like that's and we'll talk about that because that was surprisingly refreshing. The speed at which we were able to do that quick example of combat, and
that fight was like 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was like 3 minutes. It was pretty cool. And what
3
was
minute
funny
combat?
is
It takes us 3 minutes to fucking roll initiative.
Exactly. And it was really funny because one of your comments was there should have been ranged, and there actually was. There was a throwing knife attack that missed him.
I caught that. I thought it was an ambush strike. So I would have.
No, it wasn't an ambush strike.
I got you.
Because he saw him first, and then through the blade, and then they went into it really quick. And Kyle really liked how quickly that was allowed to resolve. Like. Which really reminds me, Bride, like when Candela Obscura, when I ran a series of games for Candela Obscura, that was the one thing that folks really loved about Candela Obscura was the fact that you didn't need this prolonged combat mechanic to really play out. And so far, Grimoires of the Unseen seems to have a kind of same idea in its pacing. In fact, on Monday, we have a major combat on Monday for the first time. They take on an unseen dark force, and it happens in the middle of the street in front of Gutenberg's warehouse. And when I say an actual combat, it means it might last 10 or 15 minutes. Which is great because if they, you could resolve a combat, you could do some really fun activity. And then it's okay if another combat happens because it's not going to be this overwhelming concern of combat, 2.5 hour combat. Now I got to shelve all my campaign stuff because combat took so long.
Yeah.
So the narrative story and the skill checking, and the skill checking was fun. They were enjoying rolling that many dice. They really loved it. Like they loved the idea of the skill point system. They really loved they really loved building characters. I got to give you credit. The character build process felt fun, and it felt unpredictable. But yet it was so fun and unpredictable how you approached it that you began to realize that as your character development continued, it's like it's this unending tree that you can choose from, and the way you blend all your skill, it finally made sense to me after the end of our first full session. The reason why you don't have initiative is because it's a skill-based system. It's everyone's skill versus everyone's skill. Therefore, you don't really need that initiative tactic to slow down the play.
It's like playing Magic. It's like LIFO in Magic, last in, first out.
Yeah. It's
simultaneous. The damage is simultaneous. I will say, so Josh, last time, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jason, if you were still going.
No, go ahead.
So, Josh, the first intro that I got to this game was 2 weeks ago on this show, and Jason introduced it to me. He said, we're gonna review Grimoires of the Unseen finally, and I specifically did not look at the game because I wanted to learn about it here. And it's funny because, and I mentioned this last on that show. So, the two of us have been talking about, the different styles of games and, skill tree versus attributes, D&D versus Daggerheart versus, turn order versus AP, all the different mechanics that are coming out in these new games. And I've for a couple of years now, for a year now at least, if not two, I've had the fantasy also of building a game, and it's funny because I came to the realization at the end of last week's show, or 2 weeks ago's show, that what you've created is closer to what I've had envisioned in my head of how to create a game than anything else that's been released so far. Which is yeah, no, seriously, do you remember Middle Earth role playing? From way back when in the 80s. So that was a game. It was.
Hey, this is where we established the fact that Josh is 32 and we're 106.
Okay. So Middle Earth role playing. It was obviously, the Middle Earth universe. But the main thing about that game is it was D100 based. Okay, so right there, your outcomes stretched way out. Okay. And it had a really deep skill-based system, and it was more about that than it was D&D's approach, where it's okay, I'm creating a wizard, and that dictates all this other stuff that cascades down from that class. I mean, it was very much like the movie where, if you want to be Gandalf, a wizard who is adept at using a sword, you can totally do that. So that's kind of where my head has been at with something that is very, very skill based without levels. Obviously, you still have attributes, but those are more of a foundation for your skills rather than less of a foundation. The skills play a bigger role than they do in D&D. In D&D, it's just a few points, a few modifier points on top of your attribute. Okay, fair enough, Kurt.
Gandalf is a fighter with magic items.
Okay, it depends on your point of view. Fair enough. But anyway, so I just wanted to say, after seeing what you've created, and the lack of levels, but you kind of level up the skills. I mean, it's like I said, it's closer to what I've got swimming around in my head than anything I've seen so far. The Daggerhearts, the DC-20, and I'm not saying that stuff misses the mark for me. I'm just saying that I found it interesting that apparently your brain was somewhere in the same space that my brain was.
So Josh, talk to us about your gaming journey, right? Where games have been in your life, and then kind of send us in the direction of what gave you the incentive and the will to want to develop your own game.
Yeah, so I mean, I started out with, I think, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and played it a couple times when I was young, and I thought I was super hooked. I had a friend whose older brother ran it for us, and I was just super hooked. And we played it like 4 times, and that was it. And then I didn't play anything again, until probably 5th edition came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that came out, I played it pretty extensively, and it just didn't do all the things I wanted it to do. It didn't kind of meet the niche I was looking for. And so, like many people, I started homebrewing. And then I thought, I was pretty clever with what I had homebrewed, and, put that out on Reddit, and everyone in Reddit was like, "Hey, idiot, there's a million other systems. Just go pick the system you want."
Yeah.
And, so I started kind of expanding my horizon on games, and I got into Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green a little more, and I like the darker thing a little bit. And so then, as I started building this, I didn't start with like a small 2-page game. I mean, I started with a robust system, and I've got a thick skull, so I went full in. And so as I've gone through this process for the last, 18, 20 months now, I've found myself being really a student of RPG development, game development. Like I watch stuff all the time, I read stuff all the time, and but ultimately a lot of the mechanics that I've gone with, I just came up with because they did what I wanted them to do. So, and the other thing, I guess the grandfather and grandmother, for me, kind of the thing that led to Grimoires, Dungeons and Dragons is definitely a big factor. And 5th edition specifically, with the concept of advantage and disadvantage. I mean, that is sort of the chassis on which this was built. But Call of Cthulhu, the skills, the sanity, and then there's a video game from the 90s that I just absolutely loved, called Darklands. It's set in
Oh yeah, baby!
I think I remember that.
Yeah, that's a good game. Yeah, that's a really good game.
Those are kind of the 3 big things that went into it. I was a history major. I love folklore.
Oh, nice.
It's here for the history majors, baby. Yeah. Right here.
Save it for now.
But that's kind of where this. I guess I did a very small 1-shot game. There was a zombie apocalypse game using this basic concept of unskilled to legendary, and it was like slapstick but like really horror as well.
Mm-hmm.
Florida Man kind of ideas.
Yeah.
And,
like Zombieland basically.
Yeah, but I used that chassis, and I was just like, that would feel a lot more flat to me to build that game, because there's only so much you can kind of do with post-apocalyptic zombie. But man, history and folklore is deep. So that's
it's very interesting that you say that, because I think just from a timing standpoint, it sounds like you did not necessarily plan it this way. But when Vampire Masquerade was out in the 90s and for at least a decade, if not more, vampire lore was like, everybody was about fucking vampire lore, right?
Yeah.
And then it went to zombies, and zombies have been, no pun intended, beaten to fucking death, over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the zombie thing is now kind of waning. And I've noticed that, the Cthulhu mythos in particular is really starting to pick up again.
Yeah.
And, kind of the ancillary influence that has to just kind of the darker horror theme, but the less like gory horror and the more intellectual and cerebral horror, of the Cthulhu thing with like the sanity and whatnot. So I don't know. It sounds like just from a timing standpoint, you're like right where things need to be right now, because I see that as kind of the next, gaming genre, or not necessarily even gaming, but
Just
I
a
guess,
solid theme. It's a good
yeah,
theme.
yeah,
A
yeah. I
very
mean, there's
solid
still a
theme.
ton of freaking zombie, movies and shows out. I mean, obviously, Last of Us is huge right now, but like, I don't know about you guys, but I was huge into Walking Dead, and it just got to the point where it's like, if I see another fucking Walking Dead episode, I'm gonna shoot myself in the head and become a
Well,
zombie, because
like any popular zombie culture.
they just beat it to death.
Well, and not only that, don't treat us like idiots. And I think that's one of the things I love
Oh, yeah.
about this game. Like, Josh, what do you call your system? Right? Everyone has, like, is it the apocalypse system? Is it the, you know what I mean? Like, everyone has a name for the concept of their system. Obviously, DC-20. There's like 15 named systems out there that different publication companies use, but when you have a blend, like,
this doesn't. I've done research to try to find if this has ever been done before, and it hasn't. There are some similar, like DC-20. There are a couple that do some similar things, but mostly when people take a dice pool, it's numbers of successes or a number you have to hit, and I'm keeping the target number of
the DC-20, the difficulty check system.
So it's
and I think that's what's really allowed people to create interesting games, is that the reality of the DC difficulty check system is such a clean and like very responsive system. It just makes it so much more playable.
Check out, do me a favor at some point and check out MERP's Middle Earth Role Playing System.
I'll have to do that.
And just
maybe built on the basic role playing system, like Call of Cthulhu and all of those games where there's like, do you have to meet your, like, roll under your skill level? Is that how
I think so. So your skill level, again, it's a 0 to 100 range. So and that's the similarity that I see with your system, is it's much more reliant on the skills and leveling those skills rather than leveling your character and just getting a bunch of shit, right? That comes along with that level. And if I remember, it's been a while. I still have the game. I need to dig it out. It's in the garage somewhere. But if I remember correctly, all of your skills were 0 to 100. So you had much more opportunity to level those up over time, and more opportunity for the game master to allow you to advance those skills, because it wasn't like, because it was based on a 100-point system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just, like I said, it stretched it out. And so you didn't have to worry about somebody getting, crazy powerful, after 10 sessions or whatever. I mean, it took a while, but that was kind of the beauty of it. You could really focus if you wanted to, or you could kind of do the jack of all trades and be the wizard with the sword, or the fighter with magic. Kurt. So check it out sometime if you can, because like I said, it's been a long time since I played it, but it's the closest thing that I could think of to what you've done.
It sounds a lot like Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu. It's just got a lot more. It's definitely got more granularity, because I've got 5 levels of skill.
Yeah.
But a very similar concept, and I like the DC, because then that allows the GM to, like, sort of decide, depending on the difficulty of whatever you're trying to do, they get to, like, weigh in on the narrative as to whether how difficult that is.
But one of the things that the players really loved is the way you develop the prodigy skill, which almost is, or the prodigy selection, like. So one of the things, Bri, that he did that I absolutely love and no one else has done, is he makes age a part of the development of the character. Yeah,
that's freaking fantastic.
The original D&D game, going all the way back, the age of a dwarf, an elf, a human, actually kind of played, not a lot, but played a little bit into some of the development of the character, but not anything as interrelated as you did, because when the players were developing their characters and they were really keying in on how important age was, they really got into the idea of just what an interesting blend of a party that makes, right? You've got a 40-year-old sea captain who's who is got a phobia of water, and his dark secret is that phobia of water that was shaped by the fact that his last crew that he was in charge of all drowned. So, he's got this whole thing built behind that. And then Callista's character is an assassin, a 16-year-old assassin who has a demon in her called Dash. And she doesn't know how that demon got in her. She woke up on an altar and everybody else was dead but her. And she had no idea how she got there or any of that. But she wanted to have fun with her phobia is being tickled by feathers.
I loved watching them make their characters, because at first they were like, I couldn't tell as I was watching them, if they were into it or not. But then as they started, like, my character is going to be this, they've definitely moved into the role play.
Well, you got to remember, the brain is unwinding.
Yeah.
It's very hard for D&D players to look at other games sometimes, because other games tend to actually do a better job at character creation than D&D does, because once you fall into the trap with D&D, which is fighter blah blah blah, you're automatically limiting yourself to something without wondering if there's something more creative that you might be able to do.
I told you this, we just started this new campaign.
No, wait a minute. Kristen brought up something I keep getting on Josh's case about. Hey, Josh, where can we get to your game so we can try it?
Josh and I are going to have a conversation after the show about that. So I'm gonna hit you with all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
right now I'm play testing directly through Josh. He shared his Google Drive with me. We spent 2-3 months going back and forth, and you showing me all the main points, and I was expressing the areas that I'll try to get feedback on, which was a lot of fun. It really was fun, because one of my favorite things to do in my IT career was I love developing agile software development teams. I love sitting around and hashing things out and learning things and stuff like that. It was a fun couple months doing that. And then I organized a 4-part campaign. We did our 0 session character creation, and then we're going to do we did part 1, and we're going to do 3 more parts of this little mini campaign to get a taste and a flavor of it, and to be able to give some solid feedback to Josh and to get feedback from him. So one of the key points that I had expressed was, what's your social media plan, and what's your plan on how where you're going to put this? He's like, well, and that's when I realized he's just as bad as we are. Like, he hates it as much as we hate it. So
and that's why
on the fly.
And that's why I want to talk. We'll have that conversation offline. I wanted to talk about that.
I'm going to add Josh to our creators group in my Discord.
Perfect.
Because one of the things that'll be fun for that creators group is I'm trying to build a D&D game for us to play in, but I also want to build a safe space for creators to talk to each other. Because like Kristen is an influencer on YouTube who likes to show people how to play D&D, and I know she loves to play other games. Game Master Mom had a successfully published book on Kickstarter that met almost 2,400% of the goal so far. It just launched and went crazy, because I think there's a real genuine want to show kids how to play these games and pull them back into physical interactive game. Now, Grimoires of the Unseen is a little heavy on the horror side, so but once I feel like, and Brian does a lot of graphic work, like a shit ton of excellent graphic work for publications, and that's what his career is. He focuses on doing graphic work for companies, and he's really, really good at it. I could
branding mostly.
Yeah, and I could not do all of this. I mean, he did my TTRPG Academy logo, so it's like, I can't do this. Aesthetically, I suck at everything except storytelling. And that's because I'm a natural, I've got the Irish gab, so I'm just really good at storytelling. But we'll talk about that. For now, you do have a Facebook, and I published the Facebook link in the chat. So if you guys are in the chat, his Facebook link there, and I think that's your link for the Grimoires the Unseen, correct? That's where you go. Oops, wrong. It's a link tree.
Yeah, so that's where I've been posting stuff just to give people a taste. I plan to put out a quick start for free, and I'm getting a website up this month, by the end of the month. And I plan to put out a quick start for free that'll be about 30 something pages, and cool. then a one shot that's about a 4-hour adventure that I'll put out. I'm going to charge for it because I think people, if it's free, they sometimes think it doesn't have value.
And the one thing the one thing I felt that this game would really be successful with is a zine publication that comes out with it, where you do these little mini zines that maybe promote a folklore of a particular historical timeline, or it like you said, like a one shot, where the zine is a one shot. One of the things that me and Brian really used to love about D&D Beyond Digital is you were able to buy these little
a la carte
things. Like maybe you don't want to like buy a giant box of books. Maybe you want like the starter guide.
I need a spell. I need one spell.
Yeah, and like a really cool like zine with the historical apothecary stuff, right? Because we know, we know there were apothecarians during that particular time frame that this focuses on. And it's a fun time frame. Like if you go back and look at the period between, and I really kind of include the Viking Age period too, would do well with this game, like at the transition of paganism to the religious intersection that was going on in Europe. So 1100 through the end of 1400 feels like a fun area to kind of play this game in, because superstition, myth, lore, the Celts, the Vikings, the whole idea about the supernatural and all the and all that's going on during that time period. But we did have an honest conversation about historical pieces can suffer from the cringe effect, right? But one of the things that Josh did very well, and which kudos to Josh and kudos to Matt Mercer, is they dedicate a page in their books about why it's okay to play in this world, because it's a fantasy world. It's not a real world. It's your fantasy world, and you can play in that world just like it's a fantasy. So you can avoid the the caste system and the and the misogyny and the all the empirical historical stuff, because he's given you a fantasy place to play in, and in that fantasy land, and he expresses and identifies and really empathizes with that concern. And a lot of developers don't do that. A lot of game developers don't worry about that when they develop a game. And I think these newer games that are coming out are really helping people understand, don't be afraid of your human history, because the real history is full of cringe. It's still a place that's fantasy, and you can be in that fantasy place and have fun with it.
It's a setting. It's a setting. You don't have to play it by rote. It's a setting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to touch back. So anyway, all that stuff. Josh, we'll have to set up a time to talk offline about all of that back end, branding and promotion and all that.
And we'll get you in touch with Game Master Mom, because I hate to say it, she's going to be our Kickstarter expert now, because she obviously knows how to do it. She is proven to be an amazing developer, writer, and the best way to know that she did really well is she was terrified to do it. And those are my favorite people to work with. Yes, because that's honesty. Like, that's real honesty. These things are terrifying to do, because not only are there passion projects, there's nothing worse than watching a passion project die on the vine. But when you start surrounding yourself with experts that are as passionate as you are about what you do, professional gaming, Brian's branding, your game system, Kristen's helping people learn how to play games.
I did Nicole's brand also for
Yeah.
her. That was step one. But because anyway, I don't want to bore everybody with that because that's behind the scenes
I'm
stuff.
all
I know you
about
do.
boring everybody.
I'm going to cut you off. But no, I want to touch back on one thing you said about the character creation. I think it's fair to say, at least for me, if you guys disagree, obviously let me know. But I think it's fair to say that probably one of the most fun aspects of playing a role-playing game is character creation. There's so much excitement and so much potential there. And it's funny because the last D&D character that I created, which wasn't long ago, it was like a couple of months ago because we started a new campaign, I was having a really, really hard time picking a character because I just felt like, oh my God, I either, this group of character classes I don't like, I know that for a fact, and this group that I do like, I've freaking done it all before, multiple times. So it was really a struggle to come up with a character because it is so, and again, I'm not bashing D&D. D&D is why we're all here, okay? There's no debating that. But it's gotten, I think, that the two most stale aspects of D&D, if I may use that word, is characters creation and how in-depth you can get with that. I'm not talking about a backstory, okay? Everybody can make a backstory based, around anything, but there's not a lot of variation in D&D characters when it comes down to it. The other thing is, the combat system with the bonus action and that, and the action economy, and that's another conversation. But that's why when Jason showed me Grimoires of the Unseen, that was the main thing. I'm like, I want to create a freaking character because the character creation is there's so much depth to it.
Well, so one of the comments that just came across the screen was leveling up is my jam. One of the cool things with the character creation and development in this system is I realized that if I only have the skills and it's only, you only level up to a certain amount, then there's only a certain amount of depth, because once you get really good at the skills you want to be good at, that's it, right? So I've included a feat system where I've got 3 feats per skill, and once you master a skill, you can start buying into feats. And like Jason has said, the permutations are just insane.
Exactly.
But you can literally play one character who's very fallible and can die at any moment, really. For like 2 years, 3 years of like weekly sessions with the experience points, continuously improving them, but they'll never be a god. They may become Batman, but they will never be a god.
And in D&D, in my opinion, there's a very small window of levels where it's really the most fun to play. You've got enough going on that you're not going to die, fighting a goblin, but it gets to the point where you're like, well, I can do anything, and I've got 150 hit points, and I can jump off of an airship and survive. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think
the same way. Like after level 10, I'm not interested.
Same thing at about 12. For me, it's about 12, 13 maybe.
I want the abilities, but not all the hit points and
totally
storylines.
I've said exactly. So I disagree. I've said it before. It's like, at 18th level, it's like, I can take 2 rounds worth of Dragon's Breath before I have to start to worry. No. No, that's just not realistic, even beyond the bounds of a fantasy role-playing game, in my opinion. So what I'm trying to say with all of that is, not your dragons. Well, then I probably got to play in one of your campaigns, Andy. What I'm trying to say is, I think you did such a good job of picking those different aspects of, I don't even know that it's so much different games, but just different systems that all kind of complement each other to arrive at that point that you just said, where you can play this character for a long time, level it up continuously, and still feel like there is more to achieve, but yet you are at the same time building up those skills so that you can have fun while you're doing it. It's
and
just,
by the way, never have more than 15 hit points.
20.
Or 20, yeah, never
20.
more than 20.
yeah, that too. Like the whole thing about your armor is really what takes them. And that's exactly it. An 18th level D&D character, you jump into some lava, and if you get out quick enough, you're fine. No, it's like, oh, you're melted, you're gone. So, the low hit points, the armor, the skills and feats, and the leveling within the leveling of the skills. The sanity is awesome.
Yeah, I love that. So resolve is essentially the saving throw, right? That's what, and resolve could be used against anything, right? I mean, the idea.
Yes. So when your resolve dips to 0, you are going to take a level of insanity, and you get 5 levels of insanity, and you turn into a broken person or a villain taken over by the.
So resolve is another hit point pool, right? That's like another pool, or is
it
that?
It is. It recovers every day.
Okay.
You can lose resolve. You can basically, there's 3 different endurance skills, and endurance is more of a mental thing than a physical thing. That's why I didn't use Constitution.
Mhm.
Endurance covers resist supernatural, which is
Good. So I was using that right. Resist supernatural. I was using that right when they.
That's like protecting against spells or like seeing supernatural things, like
Perfect.
in Call of Cthulhu.
Perfect.
And then the other one is emotional resilience.
Yeah.
Emotional resilience is basically my way of avoiding murder hobos. If you start just killing everybody, I'm going to make you roll emotional resilience checks.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's his murder check.
You're going to gain insanities and lose your character if you.
Can you recover from insanity, or is that like a permanent thing?
Yes, it's semi-permanent.
Okay, so it's not easy to recover.
You gain permanent ones when you master lore and mythology. Because you've broken into this like other dimension of knowledge, sort of like Call of Cthulhu-esque. And then when you master occult magic, you gain a second permanent one, and those are not recoverable. But aside from that, and then occult magic puts a lot of tax on your resolve and a lot more chance of like losing sanity. But aside from that, you can recover from sanity by spending a week in a sanctuary with somebody that's either doing teaching and listening checks successfully, basically therapy, or they're doing a religion check on you for the week, and they're helping.
That is just absolutely fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
I so want to. What's that?
I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
Oh my god! I you don't know how badly I want to play like a warlock type character in this game system.
Oh, there's a feat for that too, like a dark god, where you can actually be a warlock. Essentially, you give up your divine favor, and you instead burn resolve to call.
Oh,
That's my go-to. That's my go-to class usually.
One of the players for our Monday night game, she always wanted to be that fire starter. She wanted to be that character that carries little glass jars all over her body, and she pulls that glass and she throws it. She's alchemy. She's like a librarian, alchemist, and one other part of her build, and I forget what it is. But you got this sea captain. You've got a 16-year-old assassin with a demon trapped in her, and then you've got an alchemy librarian, right? What other game and even though that's their starting characters, because of the way the skill evolution can happen, as long as they don't die or go insane or go bibbly,
don't kill them next time.
But what they really love, Brian and Josh, what they really love the most is at the end of the first session, they got to spend their XP. So they gained all this XP.
Every game you can.
Yeah,
that's just it. It's like instead of like, do we level up tonight? No, next session. Do we level up?
3-hour session, so they got 1 XP or 3 XP because you get an XP per hour of play. I handed out additional XP for creative role playing, and then they were like, okay, so is XP the same as skill points? And I was like,
Yes, basically.
no, I got it wrong. I said XP is the currency for skill points. And so Callista pulled out the book and she's like, you know what comes up and goes down during the day? And I go, what? She goes, the sun. Oh, gotcha. So it's the same thing. It's not actually currency. It's just really the same thing. So they immediately and this is the other thing that's really cool, because this helps them spend their points. There's a little box on their character sheet whenever they use a skill, and I think it has to be successfully, right? Whenever you use a skill,
you have to succeed on.
Whenever you use a skill successfully, you tick off a little empty box, so that when you go to spend your skill points, those are the only ones that you can spend it on, correct? Those are the ones that you can spend your skill points on, either ones that you've already become a novice in, correct?
You every time, like you check the box if you succeed on a skill, and then if they level that up, then they uncheck the box, and then they have to check it again to level it up again.
Right. So it really allows you to, like, you're looking at your character sheet and you're looking at the environment of your campaign that you're in, or that session that you're, better yet, you're looking at that session that you're in, and you're like, okay, I've clicked off these 18 things I got to do. And the thing that was like, wow, you did 18 things.
That's a lot.
Because in D&D, you might do 4 things.
Yeah.
You might do a wisdom save. You might do a investigation, a perception, or a long rest. right? And I'm being glib on that, but when we started looking at what their character and the other thing it prompted me to do that I don't do enough of, and I think I need to, because I'm not well versed in all the available skills yet, because obviously just getting started with this. I started asking the players, what skill would you like to use for this?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's very cool.
That made me feel part of the game. It made me feel more part of the game than, and it didn't break my rule about it's okay to be silent. You know, that I'm a narrative DM. I like to be silent in gameplay, where I would just stare at the players and let them kind of start playing. But because I don't know all the skills necessarily, I felt comfortable asking that question. And I'll describe the scene of what they're seeing, and I'll go, you know what? What skill do you think you want to use to resolve that? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well,
does. and that's another thing about D&D. You're even as you're creating your.
Let me read that really quick, Brad, because for our
sorry.
Podcast. 3 Miles Down sounds like it eliminates late game retconning characters. That's a very, very, very insightful thing to get out of that.
Because even as you are creating your D&D character, it's all focused on first level, third level, 7th level. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and if that path skews a little, either through role playing or through mechanics, then you're right. Then you want to retcon your character. I think this totally eliminates that, because you can move in different directions.
So I've been playing a year and a half with my brother and his wife and my sister, and they did like a heist, you know, arc, and his character was a fighter type knight. Never intended to go stealth and start, you know, but he went into that and started developing in that because that's what they were doing and that was what mattered. And so it's pretty interesting to see the choices that they make as they develop, you know.
I think, you know, obviously it would depend on the table, but I think it would be a cool little twist if the table agreed, you know, starting out a campaign, like there will be no retconning because the system negates the need for it.
Well, and I think
not as a rule, that would be a table decision, but it would be interesting to kind of set that guideline and see how that pans out over a long campaign.
In the D&D world, one of my rules is that you can retcon all you want up to level 10, because
10, Jesus, you're lenient.
Well, yeah, because I don't want people to feel like they're trapped after falling in love with their character, and then they fall out of love that they.
Yeah, totally.
You know? So I feel as if up to level 10, if you want to go and change a feat or maybe do a subclass change, or because we can narratively explain the transition, via backstory or the narrative of the campaign story. But I feel like with the character development in Grimoires the Unseen,
you don't need
there's
to.
actually it's not that you don't need to. There's actually a bonus to fucking up.
It just sort of naturally occurs, I think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, I don't love this skill anymore. So instead of being a librarian, I'm going to be this, and focus on that skill set. And I feel like that's more connected to how we could develop characters in either our gaming PC or console life, or in our alternate games that we play, that feels more flexible, feels more responsive to characters that we fall in and out of love with. Reminds me of leveling up skills in Skyrim, take more levels in certain skills to master them. Yeah. It's even more, I would argue it's even more creative than that, because the pool system is such is so rewarding for your own creativity. Like you could develop a monk-like character who's a priest who studies the occult and is really good with the traditional staff, just the traditional staff. But he could also develop his parry skills so that you're developing like that Brotherhood of the Wolf character, from the movie, where you're just an ass-kicking were creature living in the occult French countryside. And
I have sort of challenged myself by trying to pick any character from anything and see if I can this game.
And see if you can
that's
build
a
it.
good good litmus test for character creation system.
I can make Batman, I can make Geralt of Rivia, I can make the one
Sonic the Hedgehog. Make me a Sonic the Hedgehog.
And I'll be completely transparent. I'm not comfortable with new games right away without spending at least a year understanding them. I want to spend that year creating lore, understanding everything, the skill system. I was able in less than 5 months pick up this game with no problem and felt comfortable enough to do it in a narrative style. If you're a mechanical GM, it's going to be a lot easier for you with this game because there's just enough crunch that the mechanics will make more sense to a more mechanical GM. But for someone like me who's been doing this for almost 45 years now, 44 years, I'm now set in my narrative ways because I've been narrative for 35 plus years. And I don't want to change that.
This is a conversation that Jason and I have very often. I used to be all about mechanics and all about crunch. I have since, my needle has kind of moved right basically in the middle. I love the narrative aspect now, and the advent of Critical Role and remote play and COVID, all helped kind of push that along. I still like some crunch in the rules, though. I still like the random effect of the dice. I still like the crunch. I still like I have seen the light. I still like the crunch of a good system, as long as it still allows for narrative play. And I think a lot of the games that are coming out, and again, I'm not knocking any of them, okay? But like Daggerheart, DC-20, all of those that I'm super excited to play, and I've already backed them and bought them. It seems like there's still this a little bit of this hole of in the center of a game that can do both. And Jason and I have debated this. I fully believe that a game can successfully do both. You can have a crunchy rule system and it can still allow for narrative play. And I think, again, I hope I'm not being too fanboy, but I think you really, it seems, what's it? First fanboy. No, I just, again, from what I've seen, and I haven't played yet, okay, and I haven't poured through the rules like Jason has, but just from a surface level, it seems like you've kind of hit that sweet spot where it's a crunchy system, but because of the sanity, because of the depth of leveling the skills, leveling them based on how much you've used them, all the stuff that you've got going on in there. I think I'm really interested to see if it holds true. You know what I mean? That it's a good crunchy system that still does not constrain you when it comes to narrative play. So I mean,
That is
kudos
100%
on that.
been my sort of my North Star for design.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it resonates so much with you. Is I'm not into necessarily really crunchy games, but I want enough scaffolding that it has the depth I want.
Yeah, too crunchy is there is such a thing as too crunchy. It slows down gameplay. It's too much. It becomes a chore. Like I said, I think it's a sweet spot. Candela to me. I mean, I did buy it. I do have it. But to me, I think that is too narrative and went way too freeform for me from a mechanic system. That's why
I love it. Like I was
I
like
know
a
you
pig
do.
in a pig pen.
Exactly.
Loved it.
And to
Yeah.
me, I'm not so sure that I would run those games. I'd probably play Candela. I don't think I would run Candela. I would probably skew more towards a DC-20 or a Daggerheart before I saw Grimoire of the Unseen, because like I said, I don't know. For me personally, I don't care what anybody else thinks. For me personally, this is, like I said, this is probably fairly close to what I would have come up with in a system.
So I know last time I watched, what you guys did last time, and one of the things I was thinking about that I'd like to share with you is, I know you had said that you'd be interested in having, sort of the D&D race and the, something to add the layer on top of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of the areas where I have really found depth to the game, and I'm super excited to dive in further, are the other world. I am combining all of the mythologies of Europe into one interconnected other world of lands. So you have the elves and the
like a multiverse type of thing.
Yes,
in a way.
Yes, but very much not D&D. Very much.
No, I know, dude. You. This is like every bit more bit of more information that you put on. I'm like,
I'm putting in 35 artifacts into the system. I've already had art commissioned on all of them, but it's not like a +1 sword. It's like Excalibur. Like actual things from folklore, and the same is true with the monsters. It's not like there are dragons, in Europe. It's like, there is this very specific SME, or I forget how they say it, in Romania.
Yeah.
And so, and there are so many like weird folkloric monsters that you've never heard of.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like estries, which are women that fly when their hair is unbound and they're like vampiric and they turn into owls. I mean, like a lot of very, very cool depth. And then I want there to be sort of like in Delta Green, where you're part of a secret order. I want to create a secret order that you can join, although you don't have to.
Like an order of planeswalkers or something like that.
Yeah, so it's based on the Templars. The Templars discovered all sorts of dark magics and all sorts of things when they were in Jerusalem, and they've kept these relics, and they've developed relations with, and what's the word I'm looking for? Like, diplomacy with groups, the Tuatha De Danann and the elves within the other world. As like a secret spy type organization across Europe, in little groups of 3 to 5, people. I mean, you could be out there seeking out artifacts, disrupting supernatural occurrences.
So and what's funny is that's the very first thing I did for the players, because I wanted them to be rooted in something. they're part of an organization called the Faith Keepers, but they don't really know that much about the Faith Keepers. They're people with special talents and skills that get hired by this priest, who's a member of the Order of the Faith Keepers, but he wears a symbol, but he dresses like a Catholic monk, but he wears a symbol that's not, religious.
Like Freemasons almost.
Not even that. Like it's totally made up, and that's what's so fun.
Yeah, but that kind of idea, the agnostic, secret society. Yeah. So two things popped up on that line of thought. Have you ever heard of the game Torg?
I haven't. No.
Okay, it stands for the other role playing game.
Young person, old people.
Yeah, I know. The mechanics, from what I remember, were horrible. Okay, but the world, it was basically like someone took like film noir, ancient Egypt, classic horror, like steampunk, like dinosaur time, prehistoric time, and they meshed them all together in this kind of buckaroo banzai multiverse type of cockamamie thing, and it was so fucking cool because you could have a group of like a 1940s detective with Conan the Barbarian and an Egyptian priest as a party, as an adventuring party. It was a really cool idea, and it immediately sparked that when you started talking about layering that other stuff. Also, remember in one of the Hellboy movies, the Troll Market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of that thing where it's just like, it's in the middle of the city, but it's hidden, but you go in there and it's like all of a sudden you're in this like that is so.
The concept is, and one of the things going on the website is every folk tale is true, every single one. And that's basically what this world is. It's all the folklore of the period. It's not like the recent stuff. There were no vampires back then. There were estries. There were, there were all sorts of different, undead, but not that. There were no mummies, but every folklore is true. All the gods are true. All the saints are true. It's all true.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm super excited to.
I don't know where
this.
that hour went, but that hour went by.
I know you're gonna have to come on again. We're gonna have to do a third session because I still want to talk about the process of the actual more the less cerebral process, but the more academic process of creating a game.
Well, I think what'll be fun too is we'll have you back after the campaign's over, and we can talk about
after your campaign.
After the Grimoires campaign is over, it's called the name of the campaign is called The Devil's Type. It's basically about the invention of the Gutenberg press, and that's one of the I've made the Gutenberg press a relic now. So it's like I was able to pick a relic. I was able to pick this theme, and I didn't really have to know all the details that well. I just created a scenery for them to play in, and it's fun. It's easy to do. It was easy to pick up on, and I think when we're done, I'll do a bunch of feedback sessions with Josh, so we go back and forth and on what the players will feed back to me, and I can get that back to him, and he can critique and review my use of the rules and show me what was right, what was wrong. And then we'll have you back on because I want to dedicate the next time we have you on to your journey about making the game. What inspired your character development, what inspired the lore, what inspired this, the pool point, your skill point system, and we'll get more into the nitty gritty of what inspired the parts of the development of it. But I just wanted to get you in front of everybody and get some feedback on this initial first run of the game that we've been doing, and to really showcase the character sheet. I think that's a big showcase.
Yeah, I
think
agree.
That brings a much sought after importance back to a game, which is the player, the player playing the character and giving them that freedom. And I really feel like the character sheet does that. I think it does that.
Well, that's what we focused on
well.
last week. And that's, that was enough for me. I mean, a good system, you should be able to get a feel for the whole system by looking at the character sheet. Yeah, that's my opinion.
It does that pretty well.
Like when I teach people how to play D&D, it starts with a character sheet. It's just,
and then they go, "Oh, this is too complicated. I quit."
They don't. Maybe you're just a shitty teacher.
Oh, I'm a terrible teacher. I really am. All right,
I also
Brian,
want. Hold on. I also do want to hear about the. You always do that to me.
I do because our hour is up, and you always take us over.
Oh, me?
Well. Wow.
All right, fair enough. Suffice it to say, Josh, we would love to have you back on to talk about more about this stuff. So,
yeah, that'd be great.
All right, Brian, where can we find you?
You can find me at RPG and Co on Instagram, also YouTube. I'm going to start curating my YouTube page. I'm paring down. That is something that I did want to announce is the Lawfully Chaotic Studios channels may be going away. The YouTube channel is definitely going away. The Instagram, I don't think I'm going to kill it, but I'm not really going to curate it. The Twitch, I'm going to leave
mark it private or something. Just put it.
Well, yeah. The Twitch, I may leave for now, but suffice it to say, the show is not going anywhere. It will still be Lawfully Chaotic, but it's going to live underneath RPG and Co. So you can find me there. Check out the website at playrpgandco.com. A lot of cool stuff there. So, what about you, Jason? Where can we find you?
You can find me over at linktree/TTRPG Academy, or on the YouTubes, the Instagrams, and all those fun places. I am a horrible social media curator, so I will apologize in advance.
Worse than me.
Yeah. You can find me Monday nights playing currently Grimoires the Unseen, or Sunday nights playing our second season of our second campaign with the Crucible. Takes place in the wonderful world of Exandria and on the lands of Marquette. That is 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're on a bit of a long break right now because of Mother's Day, and we had a previous break right before that. So we had a little bit of time off, but we will be back after Mother's Day on Sunday nights. Josh, I posted your Facebook link.
Thank you.
Where else can we find you? Facebook.
That's about it.
Yeah. We're gonna work. We're gonna work on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Brian work on that with you.
We're gonna work on that.
He's really good about that stuff. Way better than I am. I'm inherently lazy Irish when it comes to the social medias because I don't understand its value, and when I don't understand the value of something, I don't really spend a lot of time focusing on it. I'm sure I could, but yet on my two drives, which are 20 terabytes, I have 6 years of aggregated digital content that if I were to hand that over to someone, they would probably think they struck gold, right? Because someone who knows how to use digital content.
Yeah, it would take them 110 years to sift through it all.
They'd probably go, well, can you just show me the good stuff? I'll be like, oh yeah, there's like 10 minutes on there then if you're just looking for good stuff. So
all right.
Hey, TPK, Bri.
Tell a story, Jason.
Play a game.
And most important, please remember, be kind. Thank you for joining us, Josh. Appreciate it. And can't wait to have you on again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Green room. We'll talk afterwards.
Yes. All right. Good night.